Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome to my desktop, because today we are ranking some video games, because I haven't really played that many video games this year. Normally I do like a top 5 games I've played in that particular year, but I thought this time we're just going to rank all of the games I've played this year. Now, not all of these games are new, so not all of them came out this year, some of them are older. But they're games that I've played for the first time this year. I haven't finished all of them, most of them. But yeah, let's just take a look. So here are the games on the left-hand side, and here we've got our categories. So the best one is obviously great game, which means fantastic. I loved it. I would definitely play that again. I had fun is, yeah, it was good. It wasn't perfect, wasn't great, but I had a lot of fun playing it. Then there is was okay, which means wasn't bad, wasn't great, but, you know, what was playable. Then there's not again, which means I'm not touching that game again, probably. And burned means I didn't like it. So those are our categories. We got our games on the left-hand side. So let's go. First one is Hades. Hades is a game I think I started playing, I'm not quite sure, playing in 2021 or early 2022, I'm not sure. But I did finish it this year. And great game. Hades is so good. And I'm saying this as someone who has never really played roguelike games. I don't really usually enjoy those kinds of games, or games that are quote-unquote like hard. So for example, you never see me play a Dark Souls game. It's probably never gonna happen. But I really liked Hades. I came across it because I watched a couple of live streams with people I like who played this game. And then my girlfriend started playing the game. She was really into it. And then, you know, I just got swept along by the hype, and I played it, and it's a lot of fun. The artwork and the soundtrack are amazing. I mean, if you haven't seen anything of the game yet, please do look up the trailer or like a couple of minutes of gameplay. It's so wonderful. It's the story of Zagreus, so the son of Hades, who tries to break out of the underworld, and you play through a bunch of different levels, defeating enemies, picking up different weapons along the way. All the while you're accompanied by fantastic music, and I just had a lot of fun. You get really into it. Like there were days where I basically did nothing else but play Hades, because it's so quote unquote addictive in that way, because you just want to get better, you want to get through the level, you want to defeat your dad. And even after you're done, after you finish the story, you still want to improve on yourself, because there's always something you can do better. There's always something where you're like, oh, I haven't tried this weapon yet, or I can do this fast, or I haven't gotten that boon yet. There's always something you want to do. So yes, Hades was a lot of fun. Next up, we have the new Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I was a huge fan of the first one, which I actually played for the first time last year, I think. So I came to this series a bit late. But I was all the more excited for the new game that came out this year. I came across this because there's a wonderfully hilarious Let's Play by Outside Extra who played this, which is how this game tracked my attention. So when this came out, the sequel, I immediately bought it day one, and I haven't quite finished it yet, but I'm about like, I would argue like 3/4 of the way through, and I'm having so much fun. It's better than the first one, I would argue, and I'm gonna say great game, because again, it's one of those types of games that I didn't think I would get into, because I'm normally not a fan of like you know, combat, turn-based combat kinds of games, or like games that have, you know, you needing to take cover, sort of like do tactical stuff basically. That's not usually my kind of thing, but because the Let's Play I watched was so much fun, and the characters in this look really wacky and fun, I just had to play it. And this game is everything the first game is, but even better. The art design is so beautiful, it's so colourful, it's themed after like the 4 seasons. So each world you're in has like a different seasonal theme, and they tweak some things from the first game to make it even more enjoyable. Like, for example, the combat is much more fluidly. You can walk freely on the board instead of it being like tied to your movement. You have some new characters which are a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of Rabbit Rosalina. She is a lot of fun. You can even play as Bowser now in this game, which, I mean, is always great to be able to play as the bad guy. The humor is great. I was a big fan of the humor in the first one. It's very wacky, it's very weird, it's a bit cheesy and childish, but I think you can have a lot of fun with this. It's not very competitive, it's a bit more casual, I think, but you will find yourself sort of getting attached to, you know, the characters and the combat, because you're like, oh, okay, I could plan this and then go there, and then the enemy does this and then I'm gonna shoot them that way. It's really, really fun to sort of get into that, and especially if you're a fan of like Mario, all things Mario, you're definitely gonna have fun with this. And I think the rabbits are very funny, especially in combinations with the Mario characters. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the Sparks of Hope. Next one is Sonic Lost World. So in preparation for the new Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers, which unfortunately I have not played yet, I was like, okay, there are a couple more Sonic games that I haven't played yet, so which ones are those? And the first one I played was Sonic Lost World, and Bernard, this is the first ever Sonic game I actively disliked. Like, I usually give Sonic a lot of leeway. Like, heck, I liked Sonic Forces. Yeah, judge me if you want to. I liked Sonic Forces. It wasn't great, but it was okay, I thought. And granted, I haven't played like some of the infamous ones, like Sonic 06 or Shadow the Hedgehog. I haven't played those yet. But I was like, okay, Sonic Lost World, let's do that one. It's supposed to be okay, not great, but okay. But I swear to God, I rage quit on this game so many times because the controls are so frustrating. The thing is, for me, it's usually relatively easy to get into the Sonic games because the controls are always sort of the same. But with this, it was so confusing and so infuriating. I had no idea what they were thinking, like mixing up skills that Sonic has had for ages and now doing them completely differently. Just like completely screwed basically with my button memory of Sonic games. And it just didn't really feel like a Sonic game. I know a lot of people have said this is basically Sonic but Mario Galaxy, and it's kind of true, actually. It's kind of true, I would argue. The thing is, Mario Galaxy is more fun, so I was not a fan of Sonic Lost World. There are some levels here and there that have like fun theming or good design, but the humor didn't work for me. The controls were insufferable, and it took me ages to get through it because I had to take breaks for this game because I was just like, F this so much. So I'm never touching this again. The second I finished it, I deinstalled it, and I never want to touch it again. So that's that. The next game we have is one that came out this year, and it is Stray, and no questions asked, Stray was fantastic. I played Stray together with my girlfriend on her PlayStation, and it was so much fun. I had my eye set on this game ever since the first trailers came out, because it's a cat game. How could I not love this? The design, the artwork, the presentation of this game is utterly delightful and so beautiful. You start out in like the overground world, like in the upper world with like all the plants and all the civilization sort of has gone to bits, and then you fall down into this underworld, basically. It's sort of cyberpunk-esque world where weird creatures are running around and everything is a bit more rotten, a bit more rusty and more dangerous. But then you also come into these like weirdly pleasant like robot towns and meet these robot people, and it's so charming, it's so delightful. You're immediately invested in the story of this cat, even though the cat can't talk. But it's wonderful. It's relatively simplistic in terms of like gameplay. There's only like buttons for, you know, jumping, talking to people, making cat noises, and maybe activating that little robot backpack you have. So in that regard, it's not very hard, and it's simple enough to play, but that also gives this game even more charm, I think. And it's nothing like spectacular in terms of the story. Again, it's sort of relatively simple. You try to get back to the upper world while you're trying to help the robot population that's living there. And the way it's presented is not only charming, but it just feels very nice and comforting. It is a very good game to play, I think, if you just need an evening of comfort. Sorry, for some reason the internet decided to be weird there for a second. Yes, I could sing praises to Stray for ages and ages. It's such a beautiful little game, and I can only recommend it to you, regardless if you're more of a hardcore, I don't know, first-person shooter kind of player, or if you just like play video games casually. Especially, I think if you play video games casually, I think this is going to be a lot of fun for you, because it's a cute cat doing little jumps. You can press a button that makes you meow and scratch things. It's great. The next game I want to talk about is a One Piece game, actually. It is Unlimited World Red. So I have played the Unlimited Cruise games years ago on the Wii. And I was on the lookout for new One Piece games because there was a trailer for a new game that's coming out soon. So I was like, let's see some of the games I haven't played yet. So this was one of those, and I was like, oh, cool, this is related to the other games I played when I was a kid. So I played this on my laptop, and it's fun. I had fun with this game. I haven't finished it yet. I'm sort of like, again, 3/4 of the way through. But I'm immensely enjoying this. I'm a huge fan of the anime and the manga. I'm a fan of this cast of characters. It's just fun to be able to play as the Straw Hats, revisiting sort of like old locations, old islands where they have been to. And the story in this is relatively simple. It's basically there's a bad guy who's doing bad stuff and they need to stop him. And it gives them an excuse to revisit old locations you know from the manga and anime. It's basically what's happening here. So I think this is a solid like a JRPG for One Piece. You can do the fishing, the cooking, all the classic stuff. You can dress up your characters. You can level them up. Some of the stuff is a little bit confusing there because you have, you know, some action buttons you use for like using items, but also for using special items that are only like selected for one particular character. And one problem I sort of have with this game compared to Unlimited Cruise is that you can always only like choose a gang of 3. So when you like go out into a level, you choose a gang of 3 people from the Straw Hats you want to go out with. And you're stuck with these 3 characters, like you can't switch around. So I think that's not really helpful, because in the previous games in Unlimited Cruise you could just switch around all the time between like with all the Straw Hats at any given moment, and in this you're stuck with these 3 characters. So the problem is that I'm basically just sort of stuck with my favorite gang members. So I'm sort of automatically drawn to choosing my 3 to 5 favorite Straw Hats, who are then automatically always like 3 or 4 levels higher than the Straw Hats I don't use as often. So there's that, but it's not like the game is really that hard. All the bosses are relatively easy to defeat. They're all like big pirate baddies, you know, from the anime or the manga. And, you know, it's nothing special, it's nothing to write home about, but I think it's a good, decent JRPG set in the One Piece world. So if you're a fan of the anime or the manga, or just in general of these characters, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with this. Speaking of fun, next up is we got Lego Lord of the Rings. So I have played Lego games before, namely the Batman Lego games, and I was in a really nostalgic mood for Lord of the Rings, and the only games I found available was the Lego Lord of the Rings one. So I played that with my girlfriend, and I'll just be honest, we had a lot of fun with this, especially if you play this in co-op. It's a lot of fun. It's basically like the story of Lord of the Rings, of all 3 movies condensed into like this trilogy of games. You can play as all the characters. Obviously the story and the character journeys are all very condensed and very minimized. So you can walk from the Shire to Mordor in like 10 minutes. But it's a lot of fun. Obviously it's very kids friendly because it's Lego. So there's a lot of like sort of nonsensical and childish humor in there. But occasionally it's actually really funny even to us adults. But yeah, the Lego games are always a lot of fun. And again, especially if you have someone you can play this with, but you can also play as a single player naturally, this is very much enjoyable. Next up is a very famous game, namely Mass Effect. The first one. So my girlfriend is a big fan of the Mass Effect trilogy, so she finally decided to buy the Legendary Edition for Mass Effect and of course wanted me to play along. So we started playing these games, and this is about the first one, Mass Effect. The first Mass Effect I'm gonna put in, it was okay. There was definitely space for improvement. You can tell that this is the first game in a trilogy. It was enjoyable enough. I'm a fan of the characters and the dialogue interactions you have with them. I have played Dragon Age Inquisition, which is made by the same people, so I was sort of familiar with what I was getting myself into. But naturally, the first Mass Effect is older. I think I'm 15 years old by now or something. And it holds up. It definitely holds up for a 15-year-old game. But again, there is stuff in there that, to me personally, was really infuriating at times, because there are so many things in this game that you can do, but the game just doesn't tell you that you can do them. Like how skills work and stuff like that. Occasionally I was like, why isn't the game telling me this? Or why is the game just being so stubborn? I should also mention I'm not the biggest fan of like shooty combats. I'm also not that good at that, but that's not necessarily the fault of the game, but my fault. So my thing with these kinds of games is I do enjoy the character interactions and getting to know the people on your gang and, you know, romancing people, but I don't really enjoy the gameplay bit of these types of games. So the first Mass Effect didn't really like catch me. I could see though why people think this is such a beloved series that people like a lot. But the first one, I was still a bit shaky on my opinion there, but we're gonna cover the second one as well in a minute or two. But next up, we are going to talk about another beloved game, namely Disco Elysium. Now, Disco Elysium is a special case because I haven't finished it yet, and I'm not sure how long it will take. I've last played this game a couple of months ago. So it's sort of like here at the moment, because I'm not sure when or if I'm going to continue this. Because I started playing this because I know it's supposed to be great. I know it's supposed to be. A lot of people have told me, and I've watched some, like a couple of minutes of Let's Plays for this. But for now, my opinion is sort of more in this area. I adore the art style of Disco Elysium. It looks very cool, sort of like a watercolored comic book, basically. The voice acting is fantastic in this game. There are some voices in this that are like really creepy, but in a good way, like give you shivers. And I like some of the basic ideas, and I like the idea of combining, like, you know, the detective visual novel with like RPG elements. But the thing is, I'm still sort of waiting. I'm not quite sure how many hours I'm in, but I'm still sort of waiting for it to get interesting. Because this game starts out real slow. So you wake up completely hungover, still pissed. You get yourself dressed and you go to the crime scene. A man's been hanged, but murdered, obviously. So you try to find out what's happened. And that's sort of still where I'm stuck at. You try to follow some leads, you try to talk to the workers there, try to talk to, local politicians and leaders and stuff like that, while you're also trying to handle some like personal stuff in regards to your police work or in regards to what happened the previous night with your hangover. It is sort of very unusual because it has a sense of humor and a sort of style of narrative that's not for everyone, I think. It's sort of very nihilistic and pessimistic, but also just like very weird and philosophical in many places, which I do actually sort of enjoy. But again, I'm having issues with the pacing for this game. I can see that something great is in there somewhere, but at the moment I'm sort of stuck. Because I don't really know what this game wants from me. I don't know where it's going to go. And I want to believe that it's going to be great, but it's not giving me a whole lot of motivation to go on, if you know what I mean. So at the moment, it's going to be stuck at was okay. I hope that I'm going to come back to it. I want to come back to it, but the game is making it really hard. Next up is the first game I actually finished this year because I started playing it at the end of last year. Namely, Boyfriend Dungeon. So Boyfriend Dungeon is a mix of a couple of things. It's a dating sim visual novel mixed with roguelike. So in this game, you're someone who moves, who's the new guy in town, or new girl, or new person. You're the new person in town. And you're trying to get to know some people. There is dungeoning. Dungeoning is a thing in this town, and there are weapons you can use in order to do your dungeoning. The thing is, the weapons are hot people. So the weapons you find in this can transform sort of like really anime style into very good looking people. And then you can date them and talk to them and also defeat some monsters with them. So I had a lot of fun with this. I'm always on the lookout for like fun visual novels. I'm also a fan of like dating sims, especially like queer ones. So I had a lot of fun with this. I'm going to put it in, I had fun. Because I'm not quite sure if I would put it in the same category as these games. Maybe, I would sort of say it's like maybe here in the middle. Because the art style is wonderful, it's very cute, it's very adorable. You can make like your little avatar and walk around in the town. It's sort of pixely art. And when you go in a dungeon, you do your fighting, but then it's like very detailed artwork when you go into the visual novel elements for this game. And there are so many different types of characters. I already mentioned it's a queer dating sim. There is great representation in this game. You can date anyone as anyone, so it doesn't really matter what gender you are. You can date any weapon in this game. The weapons are also different types of genders. You have men, women, you have non-binary characters as well, which I think is great. All like from different types of backgrounds. You have someone who's like sort of the bad guy. You have like sort of bad boy vibes. You have someone who they're a student, they've recently come out as non-binary and now they're sort of bonding with you. There's an artist, like all kinds of different people. And it's just cute. It's very adorable. And if like me, you're a fan of like fun, cozy visual novels with like a dating element, especially if you're on the lookout for like queer dating sims, this game is definitely a lot of fun. I definitely want to replay it at some point. And you know what? Now that I've played it, now that I've talked about it again, I'm going to put it here because I had a lot of fun with it and I would definitely want to replay it again at some point, so I'm going to put it in. Great game. Okay, next up is Beyond Two Souls. Beyond Two Souls is an older game. I've been aware of this game for a long time, and I've wanted to play it for a long time, but I think back when it came out, it was a PlayStation exclusive, so I couldn't play it, but then it came out for other consoles as well, so I bought it on Steam, played it on my laptop. So this game stars Elliot Page as the main character, who is a young woman who has a connection to a ghostly supernatural being that can do ghost power things. And you go on this journey with Jodie, that's the character's name, and she goes through quite a lot of stuff. Willem Dafoe is in there as well, being a sort of father figure. So I already knew what I was getting myself into. I knew this is a David Cage game, who is a very, I don't want to say controversial figure, but his works are very hit or miss. And I've played some of his other games before, or watched Let's Plays of them. But this was sort of the one game I was always very, very excited about. So I knew what was going on going into it. I had seen Let's Plays of this before. I knew what the story was. But regardless, I thought this was very interesting. So I would say it's probably stuck somewhere between I had fun and was okay. But I want to give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in I had fun. Because I did have fun with this game, even though I knew what was going on. It is sort of very over-the-top, dramatic, and overly emotional in some points, and it has the classic David Cage storytelling misses where you're like, what the hell, man? But at the end of the day, I still had a lot of fun with this. I thought the story was interesting. I love Jodie as a main character, and I think Elliot Page plays that character wonderfully. There are elements in there I thought that didn't really need to be there. The trigger warning would have also been nice for some of the stuff that's in there. But I think in regards to like other David Cage games, or at least the ones I know about, I think this is the most interesting one, or the one I had the most fun with so far. And I'm a big fan of sort of these like Life is Strange-esque kind of games, you know, very visually appealing. You can make choices that influence the story, that kind of stuff. It's all about the interactions with the other characters. So in that regard, I had a lot of fun with it. There is some over-the-top and unnecessary stuff where you're like, what the hell are you doing, man? But yeah, I think I'm gonna replay this at some point. Maybe also with someone else who doesn't know this game yet. But yeah, I had fun. It was good. Next up is Mass Effect 2. So here we have the sequel to the first one, and I'm gonna say, what am I gonna say about Mass Effect 2? I did like it more than the first one, because they really polished up on some elements that I didn't like in the first one, like tutorial stuff, explaining things to you that can go on in the game. So it would be somewhere here, I think, similar to Beyond Two Souls. So I did have fun with this game. I definitely had more fun with it than Mass Effect 1. Again, there were some elements in there where I was like, why are you doing it this way? Or why did you change that? For example, there's no longer a mini-map the way it was in the first one, because I did like the mini-map in the first game, but it's not in the second game, which I thought was kind of unnecessary. Then instead of overheating weapons, the weapons now have ammo. Why? I did like that you had a greater cast of characters in the second one. And I'm also a bigger fan of the character interactions and the storylines in this. It feels much bigger than the first one. So in that regard, I think it was, like I said, it's sort of in between these two. It was more than okay. I did have fun with it. Still wasn't like on the edge of like great. So I'm gonna put it here to be nice. Also because I had fun playing it with someone who enjoys these games, which helps a lot. we have started playing the third game, but we haven't finished it yet. So maybe next year you're gonna see me talk about Mass Effect 3. And also, I know that there's also Mass Effect Andromeda, but I don't think people really like that one. So we'll see if I ever play that one. But for now, Mass Effect is okay. It's maybe not entirely my thing, but I can see why people enjoy these games. And last but by no means least, we got another Sonic game, and it is Sonic Mania, which I again played in preparation for the newest Sonic game. So I was like, oh, should play some classic ones as well. Thing is, I think this is the game that made me realize I'm just not meant for classic Sonic. Like, I can appreciate the history of the classic Sonic games. I have tried to play Sonic 2, so I have that one as well. I'm not the biggest fan of the classic Sonic levels in Sonic Generations or Sonic Forces. They were never really my favorites. I never really enjoyed those as much as the 3D ones. And with Sonic Mania, I know a lot of people like it, and I can totally see why, but I think it panders a lot to your nostalgic feeling for the older Sonic games, and put this down as me just maybe not being as into it because I'm not that good at it. I totally admit that, but I'm probably gonna say not again. At least not for now. I usually come back to Sonic games, but I tend to come back to the 3D ones. I tend to come back to Sonic Adventure 2, to Sonic Generations. These are the types of Sonic games I come back to, but Sonic Mania I haven't touched in months, and I didn't finish it, to be honest, because I just didn't really get into it. It wasn't as infuriating as Sonic Lost World, so it's much more likely that I'm gonna pick up Sonic Mania again than Sonic Lost World. But it's just not my type. That's basically it. I'm just not really clicking with the classic style Sonic games. It's entirely down to me. I can totally see why people like this. It has some very neat visuals. The music is great. It sort of picks up these old nostalgic level feels for these games. I can totally see that. I see why people love it. It's just not my thing, which is probably why it's unlikely that I'll pick up Sonic Mania again. Okay, so that's my tier list of all the video games I have played this year in 2022. What are your thoughts? Have you played some of the games I've talked about? If you have done so, please do tell me down in the comments below what some of your thoughts are on these games I've talked about. Here, what are some of your favorite games that you have played this year? I know that there are a bunch of games that came out this year that I was very much looking forward to, but unfortunately couldn't play yet. So yes, please do tell me down in the comments below what some of your favorite games were that came out this year, and what games are you looking forward to that come out next year. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming out. For example, there was a trailer for Hades 2. I'm definitely excited for that one. So yeah, lots of video game stuff to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already, and I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.